My Wild Man's 5-furrow salad. This is a delicious, wonderful salad of vegetables that can grow anywhere in the farm. Here we are in a typical Queens neighborhood. Gardens, grass, beautiful planted flowers, and our weeds. Let's take a look at one of the best weeds of summer. This is Queens. We're now in late July. This is purslane. It has flat paddle-shaped leaves, a thick succulent or watery stem. The leaves don't have any leaf stalks on them, and there are tiny yellow petals right inside the leaf clusters. This is purslane, also known as Portulaca. Grows in open, sunny areas with sandy soil. Also occasionally grows in farmers markets, and it is quite delicious. One of the best sources of iron and a good source of vitamin C. Has a sour flavor to it. Really good. In salads and cooked, it'll have a slight thickening effect in soups, as a matter of fact. And it's wonderful in salads. No medicinal properties that I know of, but they probably just have not been discovered yet. Purslane is interesting in that it only starts to grow in the summer. It's one of the last plants that you find to eat. It doesn't have any real poisonous lookalikes. There's one plant that grows usually in the same area that superficially resembles purslane. Let's see if we can find any of that. And here it is. This is one of the spurges. Smaller leaves, it's not succulent or thick or watery at all, and it has a white flower. It also has a white milky sap, which you can sort of make out at the very end of the plant here. So my right hand has the poisonous spurge, and my left hand has purslane. If you see them both, you're not going to mix them up, provided you do your identification under supervision and use a field guide. If you just stick anything that grows close to the ground in your mouth, that might be the last thing you stick into your mouth.
So here's purslane in its natural habitat, sunny, cultivated area. Again, stalkless, alternate or single paddle-shaped leaves, quite succulent and thick with a reddish stem. And you find it in the summer.
Here we have a fairly typical empty lot of Queens, and today we're going to study the habitat and what kind of plants you get in an empty lot. First of all, for the layman, there's so much here, it's overwhelming. The mind rejects the entire scene and says, boy, what a bunch of ugly weeds, let's dump garbage here or destroy it or in some other way get rid of what we don't understand. There's some nice things here, some quite delicious edibles, even some medicines. Here is our red clover in flower. Clovers have 3 leaves. This is a flower, the head that's made of many tiny flowers. Here is one clover flower individually that I'm holding in my hand. You can put the flowers into salads, chopped up. You can pour boiling water over these flowers, let them sit for a while away from the heat, and make a tea. Strain out the flowers and drink the tea. You have a blood purifier, you have something that's good for upset stomachs, and you have a delicious beverage. The leaves of the clover are a little difficult to digest. Some people will eat them, some people will not. That's probably the most obvious plant that grows in overgrown areas, empty lot kind of places. Right behind it, we have a plant with white flowers. Each flower has 4 petals, way too small to see without a magnifying lens. Clusters of white flowers, flat circular seed pods. This is a pungent plant, a member of the mustard family called poor man's pepper. Poor man's pepper is quite delicious in salads or cooked. You collect it from spring to fall, and it has vitamin A, vitamin C as well. You can use the leaves in salads or soups. You can use the seeds as a seasoning. If you get enough seeds, you can put them in the blender with some vinegar, some salt, some turmeric, and garlic, and make a prepared mustard. So that's poor man's pepper. Without even moving, you see more things down here. Here's a plant called quickweed or Galinsoga. It has a flower with 5 white petals and a yellow center. It's a composite flower in the same family as the daisy or the dandelion. And it's somewhat hairy, a little bit too coarse to use in salads. However, it makes quite a good cooked vegetable. Galinsoga or quickweed. Great plant. Now here we have a plant that has a very interesting use. This is called common ragweed, and if you dry this out and put it in the blender and blend it into powder, you can then blow it into the face of someone who has hay fever, and you have the best sneezing powder and the most miserable hay fever sufferer you have ever encountered. Just be sure that you've kept in practice as far as your running goes, so you can get away really quick. I don't think this is the kind of practical joke people will appreciate. Achoo! Okay, that is your common ragweed. And let's see what else we have in here. We have lots of grasses. Grasses are not poisonous, but they are impossible to digest unless you have 4 stomachs like a cow. However, some grasses have seeds that are edible. And this is the foxtail grass. Guess why it's called foxtail? Obviously, it looks like a fox's tail with lots of fur coming out around it. We're doing this taping, according to my watch, on the 24th of July 1987. In about another month, some of the tiny little seeds in the foxtail grass will be black, and you can then, oh look, it's actually working now. This is the first mature foxtail grass I found this year. All right, July 24th, you can at least get a taste. See the little seeds in my hand? This is a grain that we have here. Like wheat and rye, it's actually related to millet. Very crunchy and quite good. Last year in August, when the foxtail grass was at the height of its season, it took me 15 minutes to pull out enough foxtail grass seeds to make a single serving of a cooked grain dish. What I did is I pan roasted the seeds a couple of minutes, then I boiled them for about 40 minutes, kept adding more water as the water started to evaporate. After 40 minutes it still wasn't done, so I went to 50 minutes and then let all the water boil off, added some lemon juice and garlic, and I had a dish that tasted like wild rice, only better. All grains are the seeds of grasses. Some are better than others. Some, like oats, barley, wheat, rye, millet, and buckwheat, have been cultivated. Our ancestors, I believe, made a big mistake in not cultivating the seeds of the foxtail grass. They are delicious. So let's see what else we have growing here in just one spot. Notice how abundant nature is, and this is something that people disdain. Here are our dandelion leaves. Dandelion, dent de lion, tooth of the lion in French. That's ancient French. In modern French, dandelion is pissenlit due to the fact that it is a diuretic, and it's not a good tea to drink just before going to bed if you have trouble holding your water. But in the early spring and then again in the late fall, the dandelion is really excellent as a salad vegetable. All the rest of the year you could dig up the root and make a medicine. Very nutritious plant too, full of calcium, potassium, vitamin A, and iron. more nutrition than anything you can buy in the store, but definitely not in season in the summer. It is incredibly bitter. Here we have a plant called long-leafed plantain. It has a long, narrow leaf, parallel veins, and a flower head with tiny, inconspicuous flowers. This is one that's good to eat when it is small and young in the early spring. After that, it gets tough. So you can look at it now, but you can't eat it. However, you can take the leaf and tear it up into tiny little pieces, rub it on mosquito bites, poison ivy, or other rashes, and it will have a healing effect. You have to repeat the process and keep rubbing, but if you've just been bitten by a mosquito, this is really the thing to do in the wilds of the Queen streets. Let's see what else we have growing here. Well, I see some burdock behind me. This is burdock. It has broad, fuzzy leaves that look like elephant's ears, tiny purple flowers that look like shaving brushes, and the root is edible on the young plant, the plant that has not grown a stalk yet, the plant that's close to the ground. We also have broadleaf or bitter dock, which is much less fuzzy than burdock. On this plant, the leaves are edible in the early spring and in the late fall. In between, they become bitter. Similar looking plants. Here actually is the broadleaf dock with its seeds on it. And you could probably struggle to get some food value out of the seeds, but there's more chaff than anything else. I haven't really discovered a good way of using the bitter dock seeds yet. The burdock root, however, is great. And moving right down over here, we see the seeds of last year's burdock. And these are tiny little burrs. And these are very good for kids to stick on their friends. We have some kids here. Do any of you want to try sticking these on your friend?
We already tried.
Stick it on your friend's clothes. Did it work?
Yeah.
It did.
Look.
Okay, so very good use for burdock seeds. You can also stick them together and make baskets and all kinds of things out of them. Okay, let's move into the lot itself and see what else we find here. Oh, we have a plant with blue flowers, and this is called the Asiatic dayflower. Has two big blue petals on top and a tiny white petal underneath. Like many plants that we have growing here, it comes from Asia, and it's been naturalized into this area and tastes quite good. Wonderful in salads. You get it from from May up till about October, and it's even better in soups. Asiatic dayflower. And right behind it, we have another plant in flower, and this is a real beauty. This is wild spearmint, and it is so fragrant you can almost smell it through the TV. It has these beautiful pale blue flowers. It has leaves that are in pairs, opposite leaves, and the stem, as I rotate it, is actually square. The leaves are quite excellent to eat. The ants that are crawling on my arm are not. Go away, ants. A lot of ants on here. Okay, return the ants to their environment. At least you know that there's no insecticides if you're going to find insects. And you can just wash off any insects. So how do you use spearmint? You chop it up finely and put it in salads. You can even put it in the blender with some oil and vinegar and make a spearmint salad dressing. And what does it taste like? Can we get a volunteer to taste some spearmint? Would you like to taste some? What's your name? Stephen. Okay, I'm Stephen too. Take a leaf, take a taste, and tell us what you think. Tastes like what? Tastes like spearmint bubble gum. Great. Okay. You like the flower? It's a pretty flower. Give it to your mother. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things we have here. We have some other grasses. I think this is canary reed grass, and that is not edible even if you're a canary. There's not too much you can do with it. But we have a white flower over here. And this is called Queen Anne's lace. Let's pull one up so we can get a good look at the entire plant. Tiny little root for such a big plant. Why is the root tiny? Well, in the cold weather, say September, October, a lot of food goes into the root for storage. And then the root gets really big and the plant dies down to the ground. This root is actually a carrot, and it does smell like a carrot, and it's quite delicious. You look for it in places of sandy soil without rocks, especially after the rain, and at that time you can dig up the carrot, of course only where there's lots and lots of them. You don't want to endanger even such a common plant. You can dig up the carrot and eat it. This is one you always need expert supervision, because there's a similar plant called poison hemlock, and the last time poison hemlock was used to any great success was thousands of years ago. A gentleman by the name of Socrates was convicted in ancient Athens for corrupting the youth by teaching them philosophy and teaching them how to think. So he was sentenced to death at the age of 70, and what he chose to do, rather than being hacked to pieces by swords, is he made a tea out of poison hemlock root, and it just put him to sleep and eventually stopped his heart. It's a painless death, but not one that I would recommend for people looking for wild foods. So they are quite similar. The carrot root smells like a carrot, and the stem of the carrot is fuzzy. Those are two qualities that are missing in the poison hemlock. However, people can make mistakes, and people have actually been poisoned by poison hemlock thinking that they are wild carrots. Under no circumstances should any unsupervised beginners ever go around eating what they think are wild carrots. You forget your notes, you forget your field guide, you get mixed up, people do make mistakes. Stay with your dandelions and your clovers as a beginner. Now, what about the flower? The flower is called Queen Anne's lace, and it looks like a lace. Poison hemlock does have a very similar looking flower, but in any case, in the cold weather, when food is stored in the root in September, October, November, December, if the ground is not frozen in January and February, and then again in March and April, at least in the temperate areas, the New York City area, other areas you have different seasons. In the cold weather, there is no flower, but in the summer, the flowers abound, and it's actually a cluster of tiny little flowers. It looks like some beautiful handmade lace, and there's one beautiful little dark purple flower right in the center. And it is said that when Queen Anne was creating her lace, she pricked her finger with a needle, and a drop of blood fell onto the middle of the lace, and that's why you sometimes get the one dark flower in the middle of all of the tiny white flowers. My friend Linda Runyon will fry the Queen Anne's lace flowers in oil and use them as a cooked vegetable. I find them a little bit too thin and insubstantial to bother with, but it's not something I've experimented with very greatly. However, there is another use for this plant. What can you do with a wild carrot in the summer except smell it and be frustrated? Well, here you see the flower where it's gone to seed. And let's cut this off because we have some competition with the bees. And we'll show you the seed head of the Queen Anne's lace or the wild carrot. Lots and lots of seeds in each flower head. And each seed has quite a strong and delicious taste. The seeds taste like caraway seeds, and the carrot is actually related to caraway. Oh, and look at this. There's even a caterpillar crawling along, completely camouflaged. I did not notice it crawling along on the carrot seed. Let's return him or her to the environment. Go on. Doesn't want to. Okay, we'll do it this way. There you go. Goodbye. Now, carrot seeds. You use them as a seasoning like caraway seeds. You can also pour a cup of boiling water over maybe a head of seeds like this. Let it sit covered away from the heat for 20 minutes. Then strain out the seeds and drink the tea. The tea is good for upset stomachs and gas. It's called a carminative. It's interesting where that word gets its name. In the 18th century, George Bizet wrote an opera called Carmen. And Carmen would come on stage and produce volumes of hot gases, of hot air from in her lungs. Apparently somebody who did not like opera called herbs that dispel unpleasantly noxious gases from the body carminatives, and that name stuck. Carrot seed tea is also reputed to be an aphrodisiac. And of course I could not resist testing this out. Sometimes the medicinal usages of herbs work, sometimes the folklore is just untrue. In the case of the wild carrot, I proved that the folklore is untrue. I did a scientific experiment, made 10 cups of carrot seed tea, which I shared with my girlfriend, and alas, only 6 cups worked. Here, would you like to try some? Come here. This tastes like caraway seeds, and you have some spearmint from the empty lot already. What is your name?
Mary.
Mary, and you live around here. Okay, taste these. They taste like caraway seeds as a seasoning. They're very strong. You like them?
Yeah, it's nice.
They're good in breads, and they're very good in soups.
Yes.
Here, you can have it.
Thank you.
There are plenty. These are weeds. They just come back when you pick them. Okay, let's look at some of the other plants that are growing here. Here is a plant that often grows as a vine with 5 leaves. Remember, poison ivy has 3 leaves. This is called Virginia creeper. In the fall, it has berries that look a little bit like grapes, except it is a poisonous plant. It's one you want to recognize and not eat. Grapes have a single leaf that has little lobes or projections, looks like a maple leaf. So if you want to poison yourself with Virginia creeper, don't eat wild grapes by mistake. You'll have a really nice meal instead of days of sickness. Let's see what else. Let's go all the way back to the end of the empty lot in the shade and see what we find there.
Can you give me the name?
Virginia creeper.
No, the one before, the prior one.
Carrot.
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 Okay, here we are in the other end of the empty lot. And here's some more Virginia creeper with the 5 leaves crawling up the wall. We're seeing some more shade-tolerant plants in this area. Right over here we have some wood sorrel that I'm going to pick. Has 3 leaves like a clover, but the leaves are all heart-shaped. And it has a fruit capsule that's long and cylindrical. This one tastes lemony. You get this from spring to fall. Good in salads, especially good on a hot day. And we are in the 90s and humid today, so I'm going to eat the whole thing. Okay, here's our Virginia creeper creeping up the wall just like it's supposed to, ready to poison any careless human being with its berries. Of course, the berries are delicious and edible and nutritious if you're a bird. Just goes to prove you can't follow birds around and eat what they eat or try to fly the way they fly. You're going to get into trouble. And right in front of me, we have another plant that is undesirable for human beings. It has a leaf that feels like sandpaper. It has 3 lobes or projections on the leaf. It's called greater ragweed, and it's another plant that makes excellent sneezing powder to blow at people with hay fever. This is one that you can uproot if you recognize it correctly. It has a shallow root and save hay fever sufferers quite a bit of trouble. But make sure you know what plant you're uprooting when you're uprooting this in your garden. Let's see what else we have growing here. Well, take a look at this fence. Fences are good places for vines. We have a plant, a vine here with compound leaves. This is one leaf divided into leaflets. These leaflets are alternate. Here is one leaf coming out of the stem, and here is another leaf coming out of the stem lower down. Because it's summer, we don't see any flowers, but if you were to come back in the spring, you would see beautiful lilac-colored flowers. This is wisteria. It has edible flowers and poisonous seeds. The seeds are actually deadly poisonous, and the seeds do not seem to have come up yet, and the flowers are gone, so it's most difficult to identify right now. Oh, I don't see any seeds at all, not even on the ground. Let's see what else is growing on the ground. Now, I've been coming to this empty lot for quite a while, and I see something here that I have not seen before. I'm going to try to pick this up. This is a plant with 3 leaves. Looks a little bit like poison ivy, but it's not, because it has thorns. This is a trailing form of blackberry called the dewberry, and it has delicious berries. Maybe it's too shady, and that's why there's no fruit on the dewberries in this lot. Maybe somewhere else I'll be able to find dewberries this summer with fruit. Otherwise, I just get the upright blackberry shrubs and enjoy the blackberries on them. Moving along, I think right under the feet of our camera person, I saw some daylilies growing. So let's explore around here and see where they went. Just noticed them before. Daylilies have delicious leaves to eat when they first come up in this early spring. But I don't see them in here. Here they are. Right in here is a daylily leaf. You eat the leaves when they first come up in the spring. You eat the flowers in the summer, and the roots are edible all year around. This is, and again, not one for unsupervised beginners, because you can get in trouble and eat something poisonous and die. There are some plants that are very easy to identify, like the spearmint with its minty odor that we were looking at before. There are other plants that are much, much more difficult. And here is one that I think I know what it is. This is one of the members of the sumac family. It's actually a small tree. This empty lot is starting to be transformed into a forest very slowly. That's called succession. And mature sumac will have berries. If it has white berries, leave it alone. It's poison sumac. If it has red berries, you can swish the berries around in water, strain everything out through cheesecloth, and you have a pink lemonade, which is quite delicious and high in vitamin C. So we've looked at quite a few things in this empty lot. There are actually more things that are not apparent in midsummer, so we're going to have to move into our cold weather months to continue and see what other kinds of plants can be growing here. Look at these beautiful berries. This is one of the prizes of foraging. This is a species of raspberry that has come over from Asia and is now all over the eastern half of the country, called the wineberry. As I said, it's a raspberry, and as such, when you pick it, it's hollow and very, very delicious. This is in season in the New York area in the summer. You'll find it from maybe the 4th of July until I've eaten all of them up. Usually a few lingering on into the beginning of August. What can I say about them? They're incredible. Can't say too much about them because I'm too busy eating them all the time. This is the end of July, so it's the end of the season, but there is still plenty around to collect. And I have a few hidden places where none of them have been picked before. Here, people have been here eating. The leaves are three-parted. It's a little bit similar to poison ivy, but the wineberry has these reddish bristles on them, and they're light underneath, so you can recognize this plant quite easily. If you dry out the leaves and make a tea out of it, you have an herb that's used by both the Europeans and the American Indians, as well as the Asians, for problems of the female reproductive system. Everything from menstrual cramps to menopause, childbirth, recovering from childbirth, and all different cultures use the leaves of the various species of raspberries. So, let's see if I can pull one off without lacerating my finger. The leaf is a palmate compound leaf. Looks like the palm of your hand with the leaflets radiating out from a common center. They're light on the back, very bristly, full of vitamin K, which is good for clotting. And you dry this out. You don't use it fresh. There's something harmful in these leaves. So you dry it out and then make a tea out of it. Pour boiling water over the leaves and let them sit about 20 minutes. Strain out the dried, steeped leaves, and you drink the tea. Nothing toxic in it at all. So that is your wineberry, one of the species of red raspberry that's very common in my area, and it's a member of the brambles. Other brambles include the black raspberry and the blackberry, among others.
Here are the flowers of the wild parsnip, a European plant that often grows on the edges of sunny fields. That's the leaf, feather compound, long midrib with leaflets coming out, and they're toothed on both sides. And the taproot is in season in the fall when there's food stored underground, and in early spring. In the winter, it would be there too, but you can't find it. It's an umbelliferous plant, so the flowers are arranged like they're at the ends of spokes of an umbrella, similar to its relative, the carrot or Queen Anne's lace. And the roots are quite delicious, similar to the commercial parsnip, but once it goes wild, the wild parsnip gets way more flavor. Now here are the seeds, and these are in season in the summer, again configured like an umbrella, and this is one I love to collect. They are an incredibly delicious seasoning. So I'll put this in breads like caraway seeds, in soups, ground up, in dips and spreads, and they dry quite easily. If you don't have a food dehydrator, you put them into a paper bag, leave them for a few weeks. Once they're dry, you put them in a jar like other dried herbs. And I always like to have at least a year's supply of these dried in my spice cabinet. Wonderful flavoring, and the flavorings make the difference between a good recipe and an outstanding one. So it looks like I've got my supply here. Here's a closer look at the feather compound leaves. The subdivisions or leaflets are arranged as though they are feathers coming out of the tail of a bird, and leaves themselves are alternate or single. Here's the common cattail, not in season now in the summer, but in the spring you peel away the outer leaves and the inner core tastes like cucumbers, only better. By late spring, the brown seed heads that you see in the background, when they're green, you cook them like corn on the cob, and then they become covered with pollen, and you shake the pollen over a bed. You do this repeatedly with like 100 cattails, and then you can use the pollen as flour. At this point, there is nothing you can do with them. Survivalists like to get starch out of the roots, and that's also in the cold weather season. And I did try that. It is very labor intensive, and you get a very tiny amount of starch. So stick to the 3 uses that I just mentioned. And these grow in marshes. That's a wetland where there are grassy plants, sunny, as opposed to a swamp, a wetland where there are trees and it's shady. The cattails don't grow in swamps. They grow in marshes, often in great quantity. This is climbing nightshade, an invasive European and Asian vine. It has 5 violet blue petals and a long stamen in the center, so it looks like a lampshade with a candle in the middle. It is a reliable plant, if there ever was one. The flowers and the red berries that look like little tomatoes are all poisonous. You can count on it. They can even kill you, but quite easy to recognize. And it is related to potatoes, eggplant, other deadly nightshades. So this is a good one to look at and avoid, although it does have edible commercial relatives. This is pokeweed in flower here. So this is a tall native plant, reddish coloration on the stem. The flowers, I believe 5 petals, are on a raceme, a long stalk, where each flower has its own stalk. In the center is the ovary, which will become the berry. The berries are quite delicious, but only if you're a bird, because the seed passes through the digestive system. And if humans eat the berries, especially the seeds, you wind up with severe vomiting and diarrhea. Same for the rest of the plant. We have to get this in the spring, the shoot, the young plant, with no trace of the deadly root, and boil it in rapidly boiling water. Throw out the water, pour in more boiling water, boil it a second time, throw out the water, and then boil it a third time. That gets rid of the water-soluble toxin that causes severe vomiting, diarrhea, and dehydration. So this is not one for unsupervised beginners to use. While I'm doing the boiling, I will saute some garlic, vegan bacon bits, and olive oil before the garlic starts to burn. The second it turns brown, I'll add some tamari soy sauce. And it's called poke salad, not to be confused with salad, and it is quite delicious, but that's in the spring. This is a black cherry tree, a native species of cherry, shiny elliptical toothed, alternate simple leaves, medium-sized tree, and cherries that are black when they're ripe, each with 1 seed inside, that have a bittersweet flavor, cherry and bittersweet together. It takes a while to get used to, but then the flavor grows on you. And these are in season in the summer. The cherries grow on racemes, a long stalk where each cherry has its own stalk, preceded by a raceme of white flowers in the spring. Some years are really good for this fruit, other years are terrible. And a good year I collect as many as I can. I'll cook them in a sweet fruit juice with thickeners like agar, and they are quite delicious. Hopefully next summer will be another good year for these. So I make jams with them, I make puddings with them, really any kind of dessert. And they go well with sweet ingredients. This is a medium-sized tree that often grows at the edges of forests or sunny areas in the forest. The bark is gray and smooth. It has horizontal lines on it, and it has cracks on it, a little similar to black birch, but black birch, when you break the twigs, smell like wintergreen, and the black cherry smells like bitter almond, the odor you get inside of a peach or apricot kernel. Quite common tree. Here's the common blackberry in season in the second half of the summer. So it's a cane, which means the roots are perennial. The above ground part 1 year just has leaves, then the second year it has leaves, flowers, and berries, and then it dies to the ground again and repeats. The blackberry looks like the blackberries you buy in the store. The canes are quite thorny. I pick them wearing work gloves with a fingertip of one glove cut off my hand. More flavorful and more seedy than the blackberries that you buy in the store. It's a native species and it is very common, so go look for it. Go early in the morning so you can be covered up without facing the full heat of the summer. And again, work gloves where you cut off the fingers of one glove so you can reach the berries, and then the other hand that is fully gloved, you can move the shrubs around and get the berries. I also will attach a container to my belt or backpack so I have both hands free to pick. So follow these directions and you should get a really nice harvest. So here I am not following my own directions because I had my film crew in the middle of the day and we're picking other things too. So I have short sleeves and shorts because it's really hot, but I do have the work gloves, but this definitely makes it more difficult to pick. In Shakespeare's day, brambles, blackberries, and raspberries were called lawyers because they have sharp thorns. They grab onto you and they don't let go until they've drawn blood. And not much has changed in the legal profession in the 500 years since. Although again, the blackberries are very delicious and worth the effort to pick them. Mid-July to mid-August is the best time to get them, sometimes a few in September. Here's the common elderberry. This is a very tall shrub, sort of looks like a tree, but it doesn't have a main trunk. And it has opposite or paired feather compound leaves. So again, the leaves are divided like the feathers on the tail of a bird, and they are in twos. The berries are in umbrella-like clusters. They are small, numerous, and black when ripe. They may get you sick if you eat them raw. And even some people don't tolerate these well, but cooked, they are very delicious. A little like raisins, but not as sweet. I get these anytime I can. And this large shrub is native. So go out and see if you can find any. You'll be very happy when you do.